welcome to LBC Irregulars, a Sherlock Holmes podcast radio episode brought to you by the LONGBOX CRUSADE. This is episode 8 of the radio series, and on this episode, we will listen to the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes, the Unfortunate Tobacconist. It is from season 5, episode 80, and it aired on April 30th, 1945. And as always, it features Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce. I want to give a thanks to the Arthur Conan Doyle Encyclopedia website. They keep me straight on all these numberings of seasons and whatnot. Now, after we listen to the show, my guests and I will discuss our thoughts on it. We invite you to be part of that conversation. You can leave us a voicemail with your thoughts at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX. Or you can comment on the show at LONGBOX CRUSADE, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Or you go old school and contact us with email, contact@longboxcrusade.com. Your comments might just get played on a future episode. Now it's time for the show. Let us dim the lights and travel back in our minds to a London of the past, through the chilled and foggy streets of London to 221B Baker Street.
This episode from the life of Sherlock Holmes will be transmitted to our men and women overseas by shortwave and through the worldwide facilities of the Armed Forces Radio Service. Pet-Free Wine brings you Basil Rathbone and Nigel Bruce in the new adventures of Sherlock Holmes. The Petrie family, the family that took time to bring you good wine, invites you to listen to Dr. Watson tell us about another exciting adventure he shared with his old friend, that master detective Sherlock Holmes.
It began on a summer evening in 1906. I'd been for a long walk in the park, I remember, when I returned to Baker Street and entered our rooms. Holmes looked up at me with a twinkle and spoke.
You look positively glowing with health, Watson.
Well, I had a splendid walk, my dear fellow. You should have come with me. The park was looking particularly beautiful.
Well, chap, during your absence, I've decided to write another monograph.
Oh, what's the subject this time?
Occupational liability to murder. For instance, the mortality rate is naturally high among policemen and detectives. Physicians are murdered with fair regularity, but the murder of a dentist is rare. And who ever heard of a murdered veterinary surgeon?
That's quite true, but what's the occasion for this little homily?
I've been browsing over my newspaper clippings.
Yeah?
You recall ever hearing of a murdered tobacconist, Watson?
No, I can't say that I do.
Why? And yet my clippings inform me that no less than 3 tobacconists have been murdered in the past 6 months, and all the murders have occurred in the same small shop at the East End of London. Now, why do you suppose 3 tobacconists would be murdered in the same shop? Come now, fellow. Give me a logical solution to the problem, will you?
Well, let me see. You say that the shop's in the East End?
Yes.
Is it near the river?
As it happens, it's on the water's edge.
And supposing the tobacconist's shop was the headquarters of a smuggling ring. Perhaps boxes of cigars were unloaded from the dock and brought to the shop. Cigars containing pearls or opium or something.
Watson, my dear fellow, you're doing splendidly. You must walk in the park more frequently. You're positively scintillating.
Oh, no, you're making fun of me.
I'm sure you're not.
You're expecting anyone home?
No, probably a visitor from Mrs. Hudson. Go on with your fascinating theory. Now, why are 3 tobacconists murdered?
Well, because they know too much. Perhaps they demand a share in the profits, so the head of the ring decides to kill them.
Plausible enough, Watson. I really must congratulate you. I can see that I'm very lucky in having a biographer with such a lively imagination.
Thanks very much.
Come in.
Imagination. Oh, hello, Lestrade.
I'm glad to see you.
I hope I'm not intruding.
Not at all, my dear fellow. Come along, sit down.
Thank you, Miss Holmes.
Anything remarkable on hand?
No, Miss Holmes. Nothing very particular.
Then tell me all about it, Lestrade.
Can't hide anything from you, can I, sir? Yes, there is something on my mind, and no mistake.
And it concerns the 3 murdered tobacconists, I see. Splendid.
Now, how the blazes did you know that? Yes, Holmes, that's pure magic.
Not at all, my dear Watson. It's simple deduction. Observe the 5 cigars peering out of Lestrade's breast pocket. They are of a far superior quality to his usual brand. Obviously, the scene of his latest investigation has proffered certain, well, should we say, professional perquisites. Am I right, Lestrade?
Of course you are. Careful one, Mr. Holmes.
Thank you, Lord. My pipe.
Well, how about you, Doctor? Oh, thank you, Lestrade. Thank you. Coronas.
And now, Inspector, tell me about the murdered tobacconist.
How much do you know about the case?
Oh, just what I've read in the papers.
Well, curiously enough, we were discussing the affair as you walked in, Lestrade.
It's a strange business, gentlemen. I only got hold of the old story today when I had a long talk to young Jack Longworth. He's the owner of the shop.
Well, in relation to Jarrod Longworth, the taller member of Parliament who battled so successfully against the slum clearance bill?
His son, Mr. Holmes. Nice young fellow, too. When his father died, he inherited this shop, along with a lot of other property in the East End.
Well, how big a shop is it, Mr. Holmes?
Large sold in the wall, Doctor, like all the other shops in that part of London. Young Mr. Longworth tells me he first rents it to a man by the name of George Grillet. He lives there with his daughter Lily, and made it quite a nice go out of the shop. 6 months ago, when Jack Longworth was abroad, George Grillet has a stroke and nearly kicks the bucket.
Kicks the what?
He nearly dies, Doctor.
Oh, kicks the bucket. I don't remember that.
And then what happened, Lestrade?
Well, while he's in the hospital, his daughter gives up the lease on the shop. A few days later, an Italian takes it over, and a couple of weeks later, he's found with his float cup.
Did you investigate that first murder yourself?
No, Mr. Holmes. It seemed like any of a dozen killings we get in that part of London. A shopkeeper cut up, his till emptied, no clues.
There was an ex-tenant.
A Scotchman, bloke by the name of Mackintosh. A few weeks after he moved in, the same thing happened to him. That time, I did go down there, but I couldn't find out nothing.
Was robbery again the apparent motive?
Yes, sir, but the killing wasn't the same. He was strangled with a silk scarf.
Silk scarf, eh? And who was the third tenant? The man who was murdered yesterday?
A Hindu fella, a man by the name of Mukherjee. He takes it over a week last Friday, and yesterday we find him knife through the back and his money gone. Of course, I was down there before you could say Crystal Palace. But once again, I didn't find out nothing. No knife, no fingerprints on the till, no footprints, just a very dead Hindu.
Was young Mr. Longworth a landlord in England when these murders occurred?
Yeah, that's the funny thing about it, Mr. Holmes. He docked at Tilbury yesterday morning. He didn't know nothing about what had been going on.
Well, I imagine he could have difficulty in renting the shop after 3 murders.
Well, that's just it, Doctor. That's why he comes to me at the yard. George Grillet, his first tenant of the shop, moved back there today with his daughter Lily. And young Mr. Longworth's worried about them. Well, if you ask me, he's more worried about the daughter than he is about old man Grillet.
So the original tenants of the shop are back in residence again, eh? And what do you want me to do?
Well, I thought perhaps you'd be interested enough to come along with me and look at the shop, Mr. Holmes.
I should be very glad to, my dear fellow. Get your coat, Watson.
Oh, that's right. Oh, dear, that wretched infant.
Now, after it. Hello? Mycroft, how are you? What? Yes. Yes, he's here now. Why, of course. I'll do everything I can, certainly. Let's have dinner together soon, shall we? Splendid idea. All right, goodbye.
Well, is that your brother, Holmes?
Yes. Lestrade, I do think you might have told me the whole truth.
What do you mean, sir?
I thought your visit was prompted by a need for friendly assistance. I didn't realize that you came here virtually on a government order.
Well, it wasn't just quite like that, Mr.
What's
Holmes.
the government got to do with the case, and how does your brother Mycroft fit into the picture?
Not sure yet. But of one thing we make certain, there's obviously a great deal more in this case than Lestrade would have us believe.
Why do you say that, Holmes?
You must bear in mind, old fellow, that occasionally Mycroft is British government.
Nice part of London to take a walk in on a foggy night, ain't it, gentlemen? All our policemen work down here in pairs, you know.
Yes, I don't blame them. It's a vile neighborhood.
There's the shop just ahead of us, with a sign hanging out. Hello, there he is again.
Oh.
See that bearded Hindu scouting off around the corner there?
Oh, yeah.
He's been haunting the place ever since I came down here.
So a bearded Hindu haunts the place, eh?
Yes, and yesterday, Holmes, the Hindu proprietor of the shop was murdered.
Exactly.
Well, here we are. I'll go in first.
Depressing looking place, huh?
I'll be out, Jippy.
That's Lily, George Grillet's daughter. Helps him with the shop.
Sorry to keep you wet. Oh, it's you, Inspector Lestrade.
Yes, Miss Lily. I brought some gentlemen to see your father. This is Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
Pleased to meet you, I'm sure.
How do you do, young lady?
Is your dad home?
No, Inspector, he won't be in till after dinner. Went down at the docks he did to see about some cigar shipments. Mr. Longworth's here. If you want to see him, we were just having some tea in the back room.
Yes, I'd like these gentlemen to meet him.
Jack, come out in the shop, Jack.
What is it, Lily? Oh, Inspector Lestrade. And this must be Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, I'm sure.
How do you do, sir?
Hi, Mr. Longworth.
I'm very glad the inspector was able to persuade you to come down here, Mr. Holmes. I'm dreadfully worried about this business, particularly since Lily's father insisted on coming back here. I'm afraid they're in great danger, but I can't make Mr. Grillett see it.
Young lady, I wonder if I might ask you a few questions.
Of course, Mr. Holmes.
Before your father had his stroke, did he receive any threats concerning his occupancy of the shop?
Well, if he did, he never told me about him. But it wouldn't surprise me. I often told him his biggest enemy is himself, if you know what I mean.
Yes, I think I do, Miss Grillett. When your father had his illness, who decided to give up the lease on the shop?
I did. No money was coming in, and, well, it looked like Dad might be an invalid for life. Of course, I couldn't run the shop by myself. Anyhow, I never did like this part of London. It wasn't the right business for Father.
What was his reaction when you told him to give up the lease?
Oh, he was awful angry with me. Said I'd no right to do it without asking him.
By the way, we saw that bearded Hindu again as we walked up just now.
He's been hanging around ever since we came back here, Inspector.
Well, has he actually come into the shop, Miss Smith?
No, but he keeps walking by and looking in the window. I'm sure if we both went into the back room or left the shop for a little while, well, he'd come right in.
Then I suggest we give him the opportunity he's seeking. Miss Grillett, I wonder if you and Mr. Longworth would mind leaving the shop for a while.
Of course not, Mr. Holmes.
Make your departure rather ostentatious, shall we say, so that he can't help noticing it. Give us half an hour or so and then come back. Perhaps you wouldn't mind going with him, Mr. Lestrade.
Mr. Holmes, this is my case.
I know, but in a situation like this, Watson and I work much better alone. We may have to go a little outside the law, and your presence might embarrass us.
You'd never think I was a detective, too, would you?
Very well,
We'll be back in
Mr.
half an hour.
Poor old Lestrade. He gets very touchy as the years roll by.
Yeah, I blame him. I'm leaving him completely in the dark. Come on, Watson. Behind the counter. No, my dear fellow. Not under it, old chap. We lift the flap. So. Now it's just we crouch down behind here. Come on. That's it. Have you got your revolver, Watson?
Yes, it's in my pocket.
Good. Meantime, make yourself as comfortable as these cramped quarters will permit. We may have quite a wait ahead of us.
Look, Holmes. There's the Hindu now. Yelling through the window. Yes, sir. Here he comes.
All right, Watson.
Put your hands up. I got you covered with this revolver. Now, my man, what are you doing here?
Who are you?
Never mind who I am. Just answer my question.
I do not speak very good English.
तुम हिंदुस्तानी अपपूर्ण सकता
हाँ सकता है
तुम इधर आया
देखने को आस्ती तुम्हारा भाई हमको हुक्म दिया
तुम्हारा भाई तुम जा नहीं सकता
बहुत अच्छा सलाम
No, you don't, my man. Just you stay where you are.
It's all right, Watson. Let him go. He's on our side.
Wish you'd tell me what in thunder's going on, who that man was and why you let him go.
He's an investigator from the Foreign Office, old chap. Given his instructions by my brother, Mycroft.
Mycroft?
Yes, old fellow. And when my brother fails to tell me all the facts concerning this case, I begin to think these triple murders have far greater ramifications than we ever dreamed of.
Dr. Watson's story will continue in just a second. Just about time enough for me to mention that any meal becomes a better meal when you serve it with Petri wine. And say, you'll find that Petri California Burgundy and Petri California Sauterne are just made to go with food. That Petri Burgundy is a rich red wine that's bosom pals with any meat or meat dish. Boy, what a flavor. And that Petri Sauterne is the delicate white wine that's just perfect with chicken or with fish. Yes, sir, with food, you just can't beat a good Petri wine. And now back to tonight's new Sherlock Holmes adventure. A puzzling case is occupying the attention of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson. 3 murders have taken place in a small tobacconist shop in the East End of London. As we rejoin our story, it's late at night, and Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson, accompanied by Inspector Lestrade, are once again walking toward the ill-fated shop.
Well, I don't see that you've accomplished much, Mr. Holmes, except that you just bought me a nice dinner.
Oh, we're making progress, Lestrade. If only by the elimination of obvious suspects. There's a pattern to this case, and that should give us a clue.
Well, how do you mean, Holmes?
My dear fellow, consider the obvious motive of these murders, and particularly observe the results they've obtained.
Well, the motive's the same in all three killings. Robbery.
Oh, not sad. Not the theft of a few pounds from the till. Blind you to the real motive.
Look. Here's Miss Gridley now, coming out of the shop.
Good evening, Miss Gridley.
Hello, Mr. Holmes.
Is your father home yet?
Yes, he is, Mr. Holmes. And I can't tell you how anxious I am for you to talk to him. I'm going to meet Mr. Longway. He's taken me to the music hall. I should be home just after 10. I hope you'll be able to stay with Dad until then.
Well, don't you worry, Miss Gridley. We'll keep an eye on him.
Oh, thanks ever so much. Oh, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, Miss Gridley?
Please don't go into our rooms in the back, will you? I've left things in a frightful mess.
I quite understand, Miss Gridley.
Well, that's all. See you later.
Let's go into the shop.
Who is it? Oh, it's you, Inspector.
Here, these gentlemen, Mr. Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson.
How do you do, sir?
Good evening. Good evening.
Did you meet young Lily just now?
Yes, she told us she was going out to the music hall with Mr. Longworth.
Yes. I'm afraid we had quite a set to about that. A very strong-willed girl, Lily, very strong-willed.
Am I to assume that you disapprove of your daughter's association with Mr. Longworth?
Yes, of course I do. He's a toff. He's got lots of money. Lily's so blunt she can't see that he's up to no good. I'm pretty sure he's afraid I might find out what's really at the back of these here murders.
And what is your theory, sir?
Well, I'll tell you this in confidence. Got nothing to back it up, I understand. There's been talk of widening the docks around here. That'd make property values go up, you see, of course. Well, young Longworth's been trying to buy up all the other shops along the waterfront here, but they wouldn't sell. If you ask me, he's had these murders done just to frighten people away so that he could buy cheap. Now, I'm not saying that he did the murders himself, you understand, but he planned them. Why, in these parts, it's easy enough any night to get a throat cut for a couple of quid.
Yeah.
That's why I'm glad you're here, gents. You see, I just got another warning.
Warning? What do you mean it's a warning?
Found this note slipped under that door there not 3/4 of an hour ago.
The chief, please.
What does it say, Holmes?
I shall call on you at 8:30 tonight. You know what's good for you. You'll be waiting for me alone. Try any funny tricks, you'll go where I sent the rest of them.
Well, that's obviously from the killer.
Possibly. What's the time now?
Look, it's 8:20.
I was hoping you gentlemen would wait in our rooms back of the shop. You can hear what's going on in here, and if he tries any rough stuff, you can pop in and have him.
Just what I was about to suggest myself, Mr. Gridley. Either way, will you?
Oh, yes. Just step behind the counter, gents. Through here. Here we are. Not exactly Buckingham Palace back here, but you can make yourselves comfortable, can't you, gents?
Oh, don't you worry about us, Gridley.
Oh, I better turn up the gas. This bloke spot the light under the door in here. Might smell a rat. Now, there we are. Now, as soon as I see him coming in the shop, I'll knock twice on the door, like this. And that'll give you the signal that he's here. Is that right?
Right, Jarrod.
All right, now keep your ears open, gents. I may need your help.
Where are you, Holmes? I can't see a thing.
Over here, Watson.
You know, I've got another theory why Jack Longworth might be at the back of all this. You listening, Holmes?
Yes, I'm listening, old fellow. What is your theory?
Longworth knows that Roulette doesn't approve of his having anything to do with Lily. So when he goes abroad, he leaves instructions to murder the tobacconist. The assassins don't know about Roulette having a stroke, of course, so they keep murdering the wrong fellow.
Well, that makes very good sense, Doctor. What do you say, Mr. Holmes?
Holmes, where are you? That's my silly. He's disappeared.
No, I haven't. I was just exploring.
There goes the front door. Somebody's coming. We better go in.
Right, Watson, listen.
Take your hands off me. Don't you do that. Here, stop me. Stop me. Help.
We've got to get in there at once.
Open the door. Well, it's locked. Never mind that. Get the soldiers into it. Come on. Help me. Come on, one more.
Poor devil. He's been slashed with a knife. Roulette!
Well, the killer got away. I'm going to... Lestrade, conserve your energy. Your murderer lies there.
But that's Grilly.
Of course it is. Search his pockets, Watson. I think you'll find a blood-stained knife.
Let's have a look. Good Lord. Here's a razor in his pocket. It's covered with blood. You mean to say that he slashed himself?
Let's slip the handcuffs on him, Lestrade. While he's still play acting, he may be more difficult to handle when he realizes the game's up.
Take your hands off of me.
Come on, quick. Come on here. Very neat, Lestrade.
Yeah. Well, now that I've knocked the wounded man out cold, perhaps you'll tell me what's going on, Mr. Holmes.
Yes, I'm completely in the dark, too.
Oh, it's very simple, really. Willett has just staged a fake attack on himself. Fool us into believing that someone else is the murderer.
Yeah, but the threatening note he received...
Composed by himself for the occasion.
Yes, but we heard voices. We heard the shop door open.
He heard Grip talking to himself. As for the shop door, that's how he gave himself away.
Well, how do you mean, Mr. Holmes?
Whenever the shop door opens, there's a bell that jangles. You will notice, so.
Yeah, that's right, there is.
There's no bell jangle when we were in the back room. Willett got us in there, locked the door on us unobtrusively, and staged his little drama.
Yes, but we heard the door creak open and close, Mr. Holmes.
The creak of this flap in the counter would sound exactly the same, my dear fellow. Now listen.
Yes, but why, Holmes? How did you spot that Grillet was a man?
It was obvious from the beginning that since nothing had changed about the shop except the ownership, that the attackers were directed against any tobacconist who was not Grillet himself. Of course, his daughter, Lily, obviously knew what was going on.
Well, I don't see how you figured that one out, Mr. Holmes.
Every remark that she made showed that although she loved her father, she knew his failings. In any case, she gave me the final clue.
Oh, what clue was that?
In very pointedly asking me not to go into the back room of the shop. Of course, she meant the reverse of what she said. I followed her advice when you were explaining your theory to Lestrade.
Well, what did you find, Mr. Holmes?
Miss Grillet had obligingly left a secret door open, a door leading to a passageway that seemed to go down to the waterfront. We'll examine it more thoroughly in a minute.
Yes, but I still don't understand Grillet's motive, Holmes.
Neither do I, old chap. No, I suspect that from the interest of the Foreign Office in the case, this shop has been the headquarters of an espionage ring. I'm afraid the final answer to that question will have to be given by someone else.
Oh, who, Holmes?
By my elder brother, Mycroft. Humiliating, isn't it, Watson?
And what was the final answer to the question, Dr. Watson?
Well, Holmes was right as usual, Mr. Foreman. The shop had been the headquarters of a spy ring operated by Grillet. Now, many international criminals had been smuggled into England, foreign ships moored up the river.
And did Mr. Grillet hang for his crime?
No, he didn't, my boy. Before he came to trial, he had another stroke and he died.
Probably just as well for his daughter's sake.
Oh, his daughter. A lovely girl.
Did she marry Longworth?
Indeed she did. As a matter of fact, I danced at her wedding. It was a very wonderful wedding reception. You would have been there yourself, Mr. Foreman. In fact, you'd have liked it very much. They served a pretty good wine.
Was it a Petri wine by any chance?
Oh, well, it was so good it easy might have been.
You mean because Petri wine is the kind of a wine you can't forget?
That's exactly what I do.
Well, that's because the Petri family really knows all there is to know about the fine art of turning luscious, sun-ripened grapes into fragrant, delicious wine. You see, the Petri family's been making wine ever since they started the Petri business way back in the 1800s. And they've been able to hand on down in the family from father to son, every bit of their skill and experience. That's why Petri wine is so good today, because Petri took time to bring you good wine. And say, don't forget to take a moment yourself and send for your free recipe calendar. Remember, send to Petri Wine, San Francisco 26, California. This offer is intended to apply only in those states and other localities where its acceptance is permissible by law and regulation. And now, Doctor, do you feel like giving us a hint about next week's story?
Yes, I do. Next week, Mr. Foreman, I'm going to tell you a strange adventure that happened to Holmes and me in the West End of London. It concerns the death of a famous actor who was portraying the part of an equally famous man, Sherlock Holmes.
Thank you, Doctor. See you next week. And say, from the news we've had so far today, maybe by next week at this time we'll hear some really good news from Europe.
I certainly hope so, Mr. Foreman. But let us remember the war won't be over when Germany quits. We've still got to lick Japan. That's going to take a long time. So instead of celebrating when VE Day comes along, let's just strengthen our resolve to support the war more than ever here at home. Keep that war job. Don't leave it till you're released. Keep on buying more and more and more war bonds and keep them. Don't turn them in. Help all you can with all home front activities and observe all our wartime regulations such as price ceiling. That's the real way to celebrate a victory in Europe, by working harder to end the war in the Pacific.
Tonight's Sherlock Holmes adventure is written by Dennis Green and Anthony Boucher and is based on an incident in the Sir Arthur Conan Doyle story, The Adventure of the Six Napoleons. Mr. Rathbone appears through the courtesy of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer and Mr. Bruce through the courtesy of Universal Pictures, where they are now starring in the Sherlock Holmes series. The Petri Wine Company of San Francisco, California invites you to tune in again next week, same time, same station. Meanwhile, don't forget to take advantage of our offer of a free recipe calendar.
Oh, the Petri family took the time to bring you such good wine. So when you eat and when you cook, remember Petri wine.
To make good food taste better, remember...
Petri wine.
This is Bill Foreman saying goodnight for the Petri family. Sherlock Holmes comes to you from our Hollywood studios. This is the Mutual Broadcasting System.
All right, folks, welcome to the discussion portion of the show. We're going to talk about our highs and our lows for this episode and see what everybody thought. But you might be asking, who is everybody for this episode? First, I want to welcome Mr. Alan Wright, the keeper of the knowledge of all things Robin Hood. Welcome back to the show, Alan.
Thanks. I'm glad to be here. Also, Sherlock Holmes fan, but not nearly as knowledgeable on that.
I suspect he still has a deep knowledge. We'll find out. Of course, I've got my brother. It is Jason, the Weasel Skull Alberich. Welcome back to 221B, Jason.
Thank you. I got cigars for everybody. Here you go.
Ooh, you weigh to my heart. Oh, man.
He just got here from the tobacconist.
There's nobody minding the store, so I just took them all.
It was dead quiet in there. Hey, you might have heard him slip in a couple words just then. It is my buddy, the Watson, to my Sherlock. It is Pat Sampson, DJ Kristatos. Welcome back to 221B, bud.
It is great to be here. And, if we're going to be talking tobacco, you got the right man to help you with this. I'm going to pass out some pipes. We're all going to have some fun, and then I'll be picking them up later. So don't use as much as you should. Thank you.
Strange personal anecdote. Today, I actually taught my oldest son, Jordan, who is now officially a senior in high school. I taught him how to smoke an actual pipe.
Oh, all right.
Yeah.
Very good.
I had two out in my building. He was like, "Father, will you show me how to do this?" You know how he talks. And I was like, "Sure." I said, "Yeah, this is how you do it." I said, "Don't do it a lot. I don't want you to get, tongue cancer or throat cancer." I said, "But this is." So I taught him how to pack a pipe, light it, smoke it. Yeah. So it was a father-son bonding moment, but don't tell Johanna.
Okay.
All right.
We will keep that off the records.
You know what? Speaking of tobacconists, let's discuss this. Let's talk about this Unfortunate Tobacconist radio episode. It's not a bad episode. Unfortunate Tobacconist is the title. Okay. It's an Unfortunate Tobacconist radio episode. So, you know what? Let's just jump right into it. Alan, who, by the way, is at Bold Outlaw on Twitter. Definitely a good follow if you like Robin Hood, but we're going to talk Sherlock Holmes. Alan, you get to go first. What are your thoughts as far as a high or a low or a what the? How are you going to start us off? You can take us off high and take us off low.
I'm going to go with high. And one of the things I loved is kind of the little bit that was from Hound of the Baskervilles, which is having Sherlock Holmes have Watson give his theories on it. And then kind of mock him and have that idea that, he's inspired by Watson being a little off. So I really loved having that touch from the short stories and novels there.
I caught that too. And this one made me smile a little more because Watson, especially Nigel Bruce Watson, is usually way off, but he was pretty close on this one.
Yeah.
He was not far off with his initial theory. Because he was like, I think maybe there might be some smuggling going on at this place. And I was like, maybe.
And I come from, Sherlock Holmes, you remember with Batman in the 80s, and there was kind of a reaction against Adam West because everyone had read the comics and Frank Miller and things, and it seemed like a joke. I remember having that experience with Nigel Bruce, that you wanted the serious, intelligent Watson like in the Jeremy Brett series, but Nigel Bruce is a lot of fun, and it was nice to see him actually have, not be that far off in that specific instance.
Definitely. I'll echo that as well. It's That is a great comparison, Alan. I'm going to use that when I talk to other people about it, because I do like Nigel Bruce, but he's often thought of as the bumbling and silly because he played it that way. But if you kind of look at it through the lens of those, especially the films, 40s films, they always needed a comic relief character, so he provided that. And it's nice to have a different voice. It's like having all those different James Bond movies with some of the silly Roger Moores. Sometimes you want a silliness.
And I think after you've done enough of the serious ones, you can go back to the silly. Like Adam West was rediscovered and loved again because now they're all the serious Batman. It's the same that Watson, same way.
Excellent point.
It's kind of like when I started the Longbox Crusade. I'm so knowing and the knowledge that I have, I just wanted to keep talking, but I needed someone silly, so I asked Jarrod to join me.
So you're making fun of me, sir. All right. Well, since you're back at it, my friend, go ahead, Pat. High, low, or what?
This one had me a little bit duped on this one. It was really good that I was listening to it, and I'm like, what's really going on here? There's a lot of deep stuff happening, and so I was kind of fooled on this one. It really duped me on what was happening. So this was a good one. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I think I see what you're saying is that they really sometimes they feel like they're trying to fill up 25 minutes or so.
Yeah.
And this one was it had a lot of, you had to pay attention because there's a lot of pieces moving here, and it kind of held you because of that, I thought.
Yes. Yeah. It definitely held me because I'm trying to follow along with this, or it wasn't as easily okay, I know what's happening here. Mm-hmm. Here's who did it. Here's what's going on. I was easily duped and fascinated in finding out who this actually was.
Absolutely. Jason.
I like this one because for an audio format, they had a lot of audio clues that if you're paying attention, you can actually figure it out. And that's something that was really hard to do. So in the end, when they knew that the guy was faking his own assault because they didn't hear the bell, well, during the course of the radio drama, they made sure that every time that door opened, you heard that bell. And then when they were in that room and the door opened and you didn't hear it, there was no bell. That's your clue. And
it duped me.
Yeah. Oh, I was trying to figure it out too. I listened to it twice. And when he folds up the bar arm and it makes the same squeak, they did that a couple times too. So they did a really good job of having audio clues in their audio drama. I really like that.
Excellent point, Jason. Excellent point. I too will listen to it twice because I had originally listened to it 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I saw this on the calendar coming up, and I was like, I don't remember what that was about. I need to listen to it again. And as soon as I got going again, I was like, okay, I remember this. I was listening to it on my walk, and that is when I picked up Holmes talking about that bell. Yeah. It's definitely a reward to listen to it twice because you're like, ah.
Yep. Absolutely.
All right, we're going into round 2, so that means it is back to Alan. Alan, what you got, man?
I'm going to say a high. I actually loved the conversation with Watson and the host at the end about the wedding and the wine. I didn't know that they would work. I guess you've listened to more of these, and I guess this is standard, but actually working in the commercial, the sponsor that way, I thought that was fun. And I like Watson as a host. I mean, he was the narrator of the original stories. I think it works in audio format that he's telling the story.
Oh, he's great. Him and the Petri wine guy. And I think before Petri wine, it was bromide quinine tablets, I think was the other sponsor before them. But Petri wine guy's my favorite. And yeah, I agree. I think it's really cool that they get Nigel Bruce, and he's supposed to be playing Watson in the 40s. So he's supposed to be an 85-year-old man.
Yeah.
And or 90 even. And I think that's really cool the way they tie that together. Definitely good stuff. Over to you, Pat.
Well, since we're talking about the actors, I want to give appreciation to them. Nigel Bruce, Basil Rathbone, and everybody else that was in this one. They really sold this with their acting skills that was done, along with the sound. When you think about this is all audio, so it's all about voices, their reflection, and it's all about sound, the soundscape of it. So you can kind of close your eyes and just picture yourself visualizing this and seeing what's going on. In the room when it goes dark, you can hear Holmes kind of bumbling and touching around or whatever, looking for stuff. And you can actually, kind of hear it happening. I usually try to close my eyes when I'm listening to it, because I want to picture in my mind what's all happening and using that sound to bring that to me. So hats off to them. And like Alan said too, this was a lot smoother progression of them kind of weaving in the Petri wine and all that, along with, they had mentioned for the war that was happening as well too. So that kind of puts you in that kind of time frame of what their thoughts are as well too. So I really like that, and it's a great snapshot in time for this, listening to these. So I really appreciate that we're doing these just to, broaden my mind.
Heck yeah. I pick up what you're putting down, especially in this episode. Jason mentioned earlier, it's a very audio-centric episode. And I noticed too, like when they went down to the dock area where that was, you could hear the foghorn. Like they did a great job of that. I totally agree.
They even had somebody singing the Petri wine song, Petri wine, it's fine because it takes some time. That guy did it in one take. You had it. And that's the thing too, they had to do this probably in a one take thing.
Yeah. I think they would record them live.
Yeah.
Which is always neat, because sometimes you'll hear them like fumble and stumble, accidentally talk over each other, but they're always professionals. They always iron it out. That's part of the charm.
You got to give that hats off to everybody, anything that was done at this time frame or, later a little bit too. It's all done on the spur of the moment thing. So they can't do like these podcasts. We can mess up. We can do whatever. We can go back and edit it. They ain't editing nothing on this stuff. And it's
they're dropping one every week.
Yeah.
So, that's impressive. It's impressive. All right, Jason, over to you, sir, for the last of the official rounds.
I have a possibly a low, but I didn't quite understand it, and I'm going to open it up to the floor. The daughter. I got the impression she knew what her dad was doing, but when she told Holmes, hey, don't go looking back there, it's a frightful mess, was she like, wink, wink, nod, nod, don't go back there? Or was she trying to cover up for her father? And if so, wouldn't she be accessory to murder? I didn't understand that part.
I thought that Holmes said that it was a wink, wink, nudge, nudge, go there, but I'm not sure she knew how far her father was going. I think she just knew he was into some shady stuff.
That's the way I was kind of.
That's how I picked it up too. Like she's like, I don't know what he's doing, but I'm not sure it's right. But I'll just be like, hey, don't look around back there,
Okay. I was wondering, because if she knew it or was in on it, I mean, she'd be an accessory to 3 murders.
Sounds like it was something he was keeping to himself because of the espionage kind of stuff that he was doing. He probably didn't want to get, being the good father that he was, he probably didn't want to get her involved in it. What was happening.
I'll allow it. So I won't strike against it then. I will say, though, I did appreciate the end, and knowing that this was recorded at the time when Germany was on the brink of surrendering. That was a really cool outro. And to hear Watson's like, all right, but we're not going to rest on our laurels. We still got to lick Japan, So, keep buying those bonds. Finish out your shift. Give it everything you got. We got one more,
Yeah, him being the champion for the war effort stateside is so damn charming on these.
It is. I'm getting a little misty-eyed thinking about it right
Me
now.
too. This is awesome.
But
he's out there. I play in a Victory Garden for Watson.
Yeah. But that's what's kind of really cool about it is you put yourself in that time frame. You have people huddled around a radio. When we see the Super Bowl, people huddled around TVs and watching something like that. You have people huddled around a radio listening in and kind of just on their seat of their seat, with stuff like that. And just, I'm ready to do what you want me to do, Watson. Tell me what I need to do. And I'm all for it. And let's go.
He sounds so genuine too. I know he's an actor, but man, he had me convinced. I was like, I'm gonna go buy some war bonds. I don't think they even sell them right.
As you say, I mean, that's the really fascinating thing. Like that they knew Germany was almost done, but to keep going. That was fascinating to me. But it fits with Watson being a spokesman for this. I mean, that's absolutely who Dr. Watson is.
Mm-hmm.
Former of the war of Afghanistan in the original stories.
A veteran, a patriot.
Yeah.
A man of action and commitment.
When I listen to it, even though you can't buy the war bonds, this would still move me to do something for the troops. Something.
Pat, are you familiar with the Comics for Courage program?
What, Jarrod? I am. But could you tell me a little bit more about it?
Hey, folks, this is Jarrod Alberich, a.k.a. the Yard Sale Artist and semi-regular co-host of the LONGBOX CRUSADE Podcast with Pat Sampson. Pat came to me recently with a fantastic idea on how we might get the podcast community involved in taking some action to do some good. He called this idea Comics for Courage. Comics for Courage is a concept that came to Pat after I told him the fantastic true story of when I was stationed in Iraq during my military service. While there, I received a huge care package of comic books from the awesome folks over at Wizard and Toy Fair magazines. We had so many comics, we didn't know what to do with them all. Seriously, it was over 100 pounds of comics. So me and a couple of buddies took the bounty of comics we had down to the Give and Take library we'd set up in our headquarters building. And you know what? Within 24 hours, all the comics were gone. The bottom line here is that throughout history, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, one thing remains a constant: soldiers love comics. It's quick, easy, fun reading that gives a soldier a taste of home and lets them escape into an amazing world of comics, even if it's just for a few minutes. So here's the best part of Comics for Courage. Pat and I aren't asking you to donate 1 cent of your money to Comics for Courage. What we would love is for you to donate your excess comics. You know, those ones that are just kind of laying around. Just drop them into a box or a big envelope and mail them over to supportourtroops.org. Their mailing address is Support Our Troops, 13617 North Florida Avenue, Tampa, Florida, 33613. Now, they will make sure those comics get distributed to random soldier care packages, and as a person who's been on the receiving end of this, I can tell you it will mean a lot. And if you'd rather donate money than give up a single comic book, trust me, we understand about that. You can donate through their website as well. Again, that's supportourtroops.org. Just remember 2 things, all right? 2 things. 1, make sure the comics have good, clean content. No nudity or adults-only comics, please. Those are the rules for any military member receiving goods downrange. Okay, and number 2, this is the fun one. Please take a picture of you with your donation stack and post it on Twitter or Facebook at LONGBOX CRUSADE, or email it to contact@longboxcrusade.com. We'd love to give you an on-air shout-out and post your pic on the longboxcrusade.com website. In summary, Pat and I over at LONGBOX CRUSADE Podcast would greatly appreciate you taking this small action to make a difference in the life of someone who is far from home defending our freedoms. Thank you for supporting a Comics for Courage initiative. That website again is supportourtroops.org. Please check it out. Throw them some comics. Make some soldiers happy. We appreciate it. Thanks again. The only thing that's changed since we made the ad is they moved. They have a different location now, a mailing address. So just Google supportourtroops.org, I think it is. You'll find them. And they love it. You can send them all kinds of stuff, and they'll send care packages to people downrange. Jason and I have both been down there before. I know I've received boxes of comics down there. I'm pretty sure Jason's received boxes of comics down there, man. It makes your day. It makes your day, man. So if that's something you guys want to do, then go ahead and do that. I'm glad you mentioned that, Pat. We can tie in some of that Watson feeling to our troops today. Definitely. Send some folks your comics. And if you don't want to part with your comics, I think I mentioned that in the ad. We understand. you can donate other things. You can donate money. They're just going to buy stuff and put in care packages. They're always doing that. What a cool organization. Thanks for bringing that up, Pat. And with that, I think it's time we get into scoring this episode. And as you know, we do it on a scale of 1 to 5 pipes around here. 5 pipes means you loved it. 4 means you thought it was very good. 3, it was good. 2, it was just okay. And 1, I did not like it. And we will start with Alan.
You know, the Holmesian in me, the Sherlockian me, wants to say a 3-pipe problem, but I'm going to go away from the line from the stories and go with 4 pipes.
I like it. Let's go with Jason.
I'm with Alan with 4 pipes. I mean, we have Holmes busting Lestrade's balls. We've got Holmes busting Watson's balls. We've got good audio clues, a really good mystery, and a good payoff at the end. 4 pipes from me.
I did like the time they spent with Lestrade, too. That was good. Pat?
You mentioned Lestrade being in there, too. I like that part. And different to get used to that guy's voice compared to listening to other Lestrades, but I liked him. He thought it was pretty good. But with that, I'm going to give it a 5. A great story. I was duped. The actors were great, and the sound in this was great. So I'm giving it all 5 of my pipes.
I love it. And you know what? I'm going to join you. I'm going to give it 5, too, just because I'm really rating these on how much they grab me. And you mentioned it in round 1, Pat. This one has so many puzzle pieces going on. It grabbed me. And then Jason mentioned the audio, the way they used it just held me. Very engaging. So I'm going to go 5. So we got 4s and 5s in this one. Clearly one of the better ones that we've listened to. I mean, we haven't come across a bad one, but definitely a good one. And that is it for this episode of LBC Irregulars, a Sherlock Holmes podcast radio edition. I want to thank my guests, and let's find out where they can be found on the internet. Let's start with Alan.
You can find me at boldoutlaw.com and boldoutlaw on Twitter as well for all things Robin Hood, but always happy to talk Sherlock Holmes as well.
Love it. All right, Jason.
You can find me at Jason Alberich on Instagram.
Well, Jarrod, I'm glad you asked. You can find me on the Twitter at Kristatos01. Jarrod, where can you be found?
I am at Yard Sale Artist, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can find my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. And remember, if you want to get in on this conversation, we'd love it if you leave us a voicemail with your thoughts at 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone. One shot.
Or you can comment on the show at LONGBOX CRUSADE. It's Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. It's all at LONGBOX CRUSADE. We're in lots of places. You can send emails to contact@longboxcrusade.com. We will be happy to read your comments on the show. Thanks for joining us. And as a reminder, we couldn't do this show and all the shows on the LONGBOX CRUSADE Network without the support of our Crusaders Club members over on Patreon. And if you'd like to join their ranks for as little as $1 a month, that's right, we're grandfathered in. Patreon's new minimum is $3, but you can join ours for $1. Just go to www.patreon.com/longboxcrusade. And we'll now thank our Crusaders Club members as we ride off in our handsome cab. I'm your host, Jarrod Alberich, the Yard Sale Artist, and I look forward to joining you on the next episode.
And Helica Wolf.
Auburn Elvis.
Bill Beer.
Blast it or stash it.
Braxton Underwood.
Captain Entropy.
Clinton Robinson.
Dave Collins. Battle Wagon.
Ezra Gallo.
Gary Viola.
Gene Hendricks.
Gerald Green.
Jason Keene.
Jason Lady.
Jeremy L.
Jim Jarman. I hope you like Jim Jarman too.
Jim Meal.
Joe Thomas.
John Dr. Watson.
Josh Strickland.
Candace Ward.
Kathy Bright. MVP.
Mark Ross, a.k.a. Cluck Trent.
Matt and Lissy Poiso.
Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W.
Pimp Daddy Devins.
Paul Hicks.
Rick from Jeff and Rick Present.
Rob Morgan.
Samantha Maney.
Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 67.
Spreadsheet.
Steve Cronin.
Tim Price.
Tony Pennington.
And Toronto Cop.